Hello, I'm Comrade Shane, and this is Juche Lessons. Normally I put this at the end of the video, however, given some personal circumstances, I'm going through an extremely rough time financially at the moment, so instead I'm going to put this little blurb here. As an independent content creator, my work on all channels and platforms is sustained through the generous donations of supporters and comrades, and allows me to focus as much time as possible on content creation such as this video. My PayPal is in the description of this video for anyone who is able and would like to contribute. And as I said, currently that would be an extreme benefit to me as things are extraordinarily rough compared to usual. Thank you, comrades. In the previous episode, we discussed the importance of establishing Juche in ideology. So for this video, I thought we would discuss a related topic. That is the importance of arming oneself with independent ideological consciousness and the policy of one's Communist Party, which I will here on simply refer to as the party. And all of this must be done in order to successfully establish Juche in ideology, as explained in our previous episode. General Secretary Kim Jong-il once said, quote, "If one is to establish Juche in thinking, one must be well versed in one's own things," unquote. In order to establish Juche in ideology, it is of utmost importance to arm oneself with independent ideological consciousness and the policy and tactics of one's party. Independent ideological consciousness is the awareness of being the master of one's destiny, and also the will to shape that destiny by oneself. This awareness is the understanding that no other than ourselves is the being that controls humanity's destiny, not predetermined or controlled by God, King, or other external factors, but humanity themselves. The will to shape one's destiny by oneself is the indomitable revolutionary spirit of communists to shape our destiny, not by depending on others or relying on bourgeois state organs, but by our own strength. Independent ideological consciousness enables us to have a standpoint and attitude of having the consciousness of being the masters of the revolution and construction. Thinking and doing everything centering on the revolution in our own countries and nations, and acquiring the viewpoint and attitude of solving all questions by our own talents and initiative. For this reason, it is necessary for communists to arm themselves with a deep understanding of the policy and tactics of one's revolutionary party that reflects the demands and interests of the masses and struggles to educate them in it. This is because the independent ideological consciousness required by the masses is embodied in the lines and policies of the Revolutionary Party and provides a guideline for the revolution and construction. Arming ourselves with the policies of our revolutionary parties and keeping them as a criteria of thinking and practice, enables us to conduct revolutionary activities according to the specific situation of one's country and nation, and fulfill the role as master of revolution and construction. To establish Juchean ideology, it is important to be well versed in one's own situation. This means to understand the working class history, culture, geography, etc. of one's country and nation well. We can see through historical analysis how long-standing flunkyism, dogmatism, and national nihilism were eliminated in the DPRK. After the war, in the DPRK, flunkiists and dogmatists who crept into the ideological affairs of the party fell into national nihilism, turning themselves away from reality and not willing to recognize Korean history, culture, and revolutionary traditions. They hung pictures depicting other countries' scenery instead of theirs, photos of other countries' heroes instead of their own. When they had pamphlets printed, they imitated other countries and included contents that were against the taste of the Korean people. These are inevitable symptoms born by flunkyism, dogmatism, and national nihilism. And today we see certain individualist communists making the same mistake towards First Nations people, encouraging them to copy settler strategies and fall blindly with their own narrow-minded thinking, despite the fact that these, and by the way I'm aiming at the so-called patriotic socialists, despite the fact that these patriotic socialists are not part of any actual revolutionary party with any numbers of significance. President Kim Il-sung published the classic work on eliminating dogmatism and formalism and establishing Juche and ideological work in December 1955 to reveal the harmful nature of the flunkiest and dogmatist tricks committed by anti-party and counter-revolutionary factionalists in the field of ideological work in the party. In the work, he said that the party's ideological work should be oriented to making the party members and working people have the standpoint and attitude of having the consciousness that they are the masters of the Korean Revolution, thinking and doing everything centering on the revolution in Korea, and solving all questions by their own talents and initiative. And for this end, they should be well versed in their own things, such as the policies of the Revolutionary Korean Party, brilliant revolutionary traditions, history of the people's struggle, and life customs. This work dealt a heavy blow to dogmatists and flunkyists who imitated others like parrots and measured the new original policies of the party according to Marxist-Leninist classics. It was also a blow dealt to big powers that tried to impose their wrong policies, and to the anti-party revisionists who tried to accept them. To know one's things well does not mean to be ignorant about foreign things. It is necessary to know about other countries in order to achieve success in the revolution and construction. This gives us data and allows us to learn from others' experience in order to perfect our own revolution. It is therefore important for all countries to know their own history, geography, economy, culture, custom, in particular policies, revolutionary history, and traditions of their revolutionary parties. In order to establish Juche in ideology, it is necessary to have national self-respect and revolutionary pride. Keeping in mind here, by the way, the separation between nation and country. A country is not synonymous with nation, and there are particular countries that exist solely as colonial and imperial projects, with no actual legitimacy to nationhood, as is scientifically described by scientific socialism. This is the case of the USA and Canada, for example. And so in these countries, the national liberation struggle, anti-colonial, anti-imperialist democratic revolution still needs to occur as a prerequisite to the socialist revolution. The side effect of national liberation in those countries, which are the prison house of nations, is that a new national consciousness on the basis of legitimate nationhood can arise, as well as this being the only way to pave the way for an actual socialist revolution to follow. It is impossible for a socialist revolution to occur in either of these countries without first an anti-colonial, anti-imperialist democratic revolution taking place. The success of this, as I just said, we will see new, legitimate nationhood arising, just as it was seen in the Soviet Union, where the old Russian Empire facade of nationhood crumbled, and a new Soviet nation arose in its place, while the formerly oppressed nations gained security for their freedom and the right to openly express culture for the first time. National self-respect and revolutionary pride are pride that one's nation is not inferior to others, and noble ideological sentiment of respecting national dignity is especially of great deal of importance for those nations still fighting against a long, ongoing genocide, such as the First Nations people fighting against the hundreds years long genocide that is still occurring in Canada and the US. Without pride and self-respect, it is impossible to live independently and defend national independence, and it is impossible to win the revolutionary struggle. National self-respect and pride are life for the nation, symbolic of their dignity and honor. As humanity without independence cannot live the life required as a social being, so the nation without national self-respect and pride is as good as dead. A people that has established Juche in ideology and the national self-respect and pride arising from it described here also do not tolerate humiliation of other nations. They stand in solidarity, keeping with the revolutionary principles to defend others' national dignity and honor as well. That is to say, national self-respect and revolutionary pride are important aspects that enable one to successfully establish Juche in ideology. And we must be able to discern between progressive, revolutionary national pride and reactionary populism that is just Taylorism trying to cloak itself under a guise of revolutionary rhetoric, as we see with these so-called patriotic socialists in the U.S. and Canada, and in other bourgeois colonial projects that do not have a claim to nationhood. Today, the Korean people feel proud of living in People's Korea, where they live in a superior socialist system. Having President Kim Il-sung and General Secretary Kim Jong-il, who are eternal in the minds and hearts of the world's revolutionary people, the outstanding leader under the leadership of the Great Workers' Party of Korea, with the great Juche philosophy as the guiding ideology. Related to this, it is also important in establishing Juche in ideology to develop national culture and enhance the cultural and technical levels of the people. To develop national culture means to add to the culture, to build it so that it carries progressive and revolutionary contents in national form, and suits the taste of one's people and reflects their demand for independence. In order to develop national culture, it is necessary to check the cultural influence of capitalists internally and the cultural infiltration of imperialists externally. Today, the imperialists try to stamp out the national culture of other countries, spreading decadent culture and the Western way of life in various cunning ways under the signboard of globalization. If cultural infiltration is not checked, people can become sick ideologically and spiritually, eventually being contaminated by reactionary and decadent ideology and culture that undermine national independent consciousness. And even in a socialist society, people can be duped about myths regarding capitalist society, leading to serious consequences, as happened with the tragedy of USSR overthrow. In order to develop national culture, it is also important to repudiate restorationism and nihilism. Restorationism is the tendency to preserve the past blindly, whereas nihilism is the tendency to negate the past. To develop national culture, it is necessary to inherit and develop national cultural heritage. But it has to be the popular, the progressive, not the old and backward. Restorationism enables the revival of the reactionary, the old and the backward among the past cultural heritage, and nihilism hampers the continuation of the popular and the progressive. So, it is necessary to repudiate both, and inherit and develop what is suitable to the present requirements, and to critically import foreign culture in conformity with the interests of the people. It is also important to develop science and technology and enhance the level of culture and technology. In the present, many countries and nations have flunkeyism and national nihilism. In order to establish Juche in ideology, it is important to fight against flunkeyism and all other old, backward ideas. Flunkyism is a submissive idea, meaning to follow and copy mechanically the theories and methods of others, without independent thinking to judge what is right and wrong for their particular circumstances. President Kim Il-sung said that if a man follows flunkyism, then he becomes foolish. But if a party is flunkyist, then it brings chaos to the revolution and construction. In the case of the USSR, many of these trends were used by imperialists to undermine and eventually contribute to the overthrow of the entire socialist bloc. It is therefore important to root out flunkyism and all other backward ideas and establish Juche in ideology, remembering the bitter historical lessons such as the tragedy of the overthrow of the USSR. In the future, I will make a video discussing how the lessons learned in this tragic struggle of the USSR contributed to the development of great Comrade Kim Il-sung's Juche idea into a complete, universal, revolutionary philosophy by Comrade Kim Jong-il. Juche in ideology. This is the correct way to transform the sector of ideological and spiritual life according to the people's demand for independence, and train them into revolutionaries loyal to the revolution by liberating them from the fetters of the old ideas that undermined independent ideological consciousness. To establish Juche in ideology is exactly the ideological emancipation of the people from the fetters of old ideas and the ideological revolution. That's all for this episode. Thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. If you have any ideas for future videos you'd like to see on the channel, please leave your suggestions in the comments. And also be sure to check out our other social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Red salute, comrades.